It's our pleasure to welcome now the Secretary of State of the great state of Mississippi, Secretary Michael Watson. Mr. Secretary, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm well on the beautiful Gulf Coast, headed to Gulfport to talk to our friends at Rotary. So,
oh man,
it's a great day to be down here.
Yeah, awesome. Good for you. Great. Yeah, it sure is, man. This time of year, riding along 90, looking to your south at the coast, just beautiful. We're so blessed here in Mississippi with all the various topography and terrain, and man, the Gulf Coast is really something this time of year. Good for you.
It is a treasure. It's low 70s today, beautiful sunshine, little breeze. So it is the Chamber of Commerce Day on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Awesome. All right, so first, we got runoffs coming up next week, right? Tell us about that.
We do. Municipal runoffs. We've got some information coming out. We'll continue to educate our Mississippians on everything they need to know about the runoffs here coming up on Tuesday. Again, from 7 to 7. You got to have your ID, which has been fantastically successful here in our state. Voter ID has been it was a no-brainer when we put it into place, and it's continued to be. So we're excited about that. And we got some great runoffs, some contiguous runoffs. And I think it's so important to remind Mississippians, just because it's local and it's a municipal level, it's no less important than a federal election or a state election, because these are the ones that impact your lives much more quickly. So please do your homework. Make sure that you know what these candidates stand for and what they're going to bring to your cities in the future. So get out there, be prepared, and get to the polls.
Little concern, Mr. Secretary, about it coming on the Tuesday right after Easter, how that might impact turnout.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of these in the old days when we had runoff with 3 weeks windows. You would get that right before and around Thanksgiving, which was tough. But we just got to elevate the importance and make sure people understand why it is so important that they go vote. And it's not just going to vote to be a part of the community. It's also making sure you're holding people accountable. So we got to get that message out and make sure people are turning out. And again, this is part of it, making sure they know that next Tuesday will be the runoff election.
Yep. Got it. All right, so let's turn our attention to the SAVE Act. This recently signed into law. This was a proposal from congressional Republicans. This is where it started, to require people just to prove they're citizens when they register to vote. First, how big a problem has that been in Mississippi, if at all, and what is the process in Mississippi presently before the passing of this legislation?
Well, I will tell you, we have sent information over to the Attorney General's office, and hopefully they will prosecute of individuals who should not have been registered. And I'll leave that at that, because that's an ongoing matter. So it is an issue. And I think when people think about, non-citizens voting in our elections, well, gosh, maybe it's just one or two. Well, how many times have we seen elections that have been tied or decided by one or two votes? So every vote matters. There isn't a number that's allowable to me. And I think it's important to remind Mississippians, back in 2019 when I was campaigning, this was one of our most important issues. And back then we talked about the non-citizens being allowed to vote in San Francisco school board elections. And people are like, well, that's California, they're crazy. And yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But, how many times have we seen that matriculate across the country? So we wanted to be proactive, reactive.
Yeah.
And Mississippi was one of the first states to do it. So I'm very proud of the legislation that we introduced and got passed. Thankful for the legislature and getting that done back in 23. And so it has been implemented here in Mississippi. So now anytime anybody registers to vote, their data is put through what's called DPS Verify. It's all bounced off the SAVE database. And so it's making sure that no non-citizens are allowed to vote in our elections. If a flag pops up, Gerard, in one of these security database background checks, the person has to prove their citizenship to the circuit clerk. They get a notice. They have 30 days to come in and prove it. And if they can't prove it, they do not go on the voter rolls. So that's already happening in Mississippi. We're ahead of the curve. And I've been in different states around the country talking about the progress that we've made and making sure that the integrity of the election process here in Mississippi is second to none.
Okay, so how does one prove their citizenship now? If the question does come up, as you say, and they got 30 days to return to their circuit clerk's office and with the whatever the documentation is or what other credentials that we presently require, how would that change after this act? Well, it's now. How do you have to implement that, and how's that going to change the procedure?
Right. So if they show up with their naturalization paperwork, if they show up with other citizenship proof, birth certificates, etc.,
Okay.
that is allowable. And it's interesting, Gerard. I think one of the things that we have seen mischaracterized from the SAVE Act at the federal level that has now passed the House. If you look at Section 2, paragraph J, it talks about how states will be allowed, working with the EAC, to accept documentation. If folks can't find, the birth certificate, they can't find some documentation to prove it, the actual clerk or whomever they're registering to vote with will be allowed to receive other types of documentation, again, working with the EAC at the federal level. So when people say just because you marriage license, you can't find your marriage license, or you can't find whatever, I saw Hillary Clinton post something about that. That's just a flat-out lie, because Congress has allowed us to work with the EAC and to make sure that there is the documentation that will be allowed. But then the best part is the clerk or whomever the person is registering with has to sign off to attest, hey, we've accepted this proof. Here's what we accepted, and here's why. So I think that's going to hold people accountable, and I think it's an important piece to remember.
Yeah. In fact, just reading through some analyses of the legislation, it does indicate that a marriage license would suffice. I mean, if you have a birth certificate with one name on it, I guess, and a driver's license with another, because you've been married, my understanding is the federal law permits use of a marriage license to just reconcile between the two. Is that not correct?
That's correct. And again, talking with the EAC, matter of fact, I was in D.C. Tuesday, meeting with the White House counsel on the executive order dealing with the elections. We also talked about the SAFE verification system, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's a lot of common sense baked in here that people just don't want to accept.
Okay.
And so when you talk about marriage licenses, et cetera, as we work with the EAC, these will be documentations, pieces of documents that would be allowed to be received. But again, here's the important part. You've got that check on the back end that the clerk or whomever is receiving it has to attest, hey, this is what I accepted and this is why.
Yeah.
So again, holding people accountable.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you going to have to make any policy or procedural changes as a result of this new law?
Here's my one concern, and we voiced this at the White House on Tuesday. There were 4 secretaries there that I invited to visit. One of the things is this is going to put a damper. It's going to damper, online voter registration that I think north of 40 states have. We do not have that in Mississippi, but 40 other states do. It's going to dampen folks mailing in their voter registration. You're going to have to show up with proof now. So that's something we're going to have to work through. That is an issue that every state is going to see at some point, sometime, and to some degree. So I do think that's going to be one of the issues. The second piece is, Gerard, if we've got to use the SAFE verification system right now, you can only enter one name at a time. And so we talked to, again, the White House with that about how do we do batch verification? How do we get the Social Security death match? How do we get all these things that we need at the state level? And, oh, by the way, for free. We don't need to pay for these services when we're registering people to vote. And that is in place. By the way, I know you mentioned the Dutch team all the time. They are now involved in making sure that all these systems talk and work together. So that's going to be a very helpful piece of information.
Good. So have you received any calls at the county level, Mr. Secretary, from concerns from the clerks about how they're going to have to deal with this new law?
We haven't yet. And I think the best part about that is they're already doing it. We're having the verification process on the back end. It would be a little bit different to bring in documentation on the front end.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we talked to the White House about. Look, this system in Mississippi is going to be fantastic. It's working already. What if we somehow, adjust this legislation to say these people who are flagged, they're the ones that are going to have to come in and prove it. Because we're already running through these databases. Maybe that works better.
Yeah.
I think there's room for discussion there.
Okay. Now, are you confident that all of our clerks in all 82 counties are familiar with using all these tools to verify citizenship?
I am, and that's one of the things that we do, Gerard, training of our clerks across the state.
Sure.
So when any of them have issues, they call. Cochran Patrick in our office does a phenomenal job. Laura as well. The whole team in elections has built great relationships with our clerks. As you well know, I did an APC tour meeting with all of our clerks and our elections commissioners to let them know when you've got confused, there's got to be an open line of communication because elections takes a time period.
Yep. got to speak up. Everybody wants it right. You just got to speak up when you encounter some sort of sticky situation you're unsure about. It's no shame in it. Speak up and let's get it right. Yeah. Well, that sounds good. So we got about 30 seconds left. I feel like we're ahead of the game relative to a lot of states with respect to this law, Mr. Secretary. Not a lot of changes on our part.
I am so proud of the work that we've done to make sure that only United States citizens are voting in Mississippi. We got this done years before this, and so it's just fun to look at Mississippi and say we are a leader in this space. So really proud of the work we've done.
Always good to talk to you. Have a good one down there at the Rotary. The Secretary of State, Michael Watson, has been our guest. Appreciate it, Mr. Secretary.
I'll tell him you said hello, Gerard. Take care, buddy.
You got it. Thank you, man. We're stepping aside for a